If you want to go pro in Fortnite or even just become good, you need to understand what top players do differently compared to average ones. The problem is that it is very hard to naturally understand these differences, meaning it's difficult to know them without being told. So today I'm making a fully structured, in-depth video on 50 things pros do that you don't. The first thing pros do is looking for unfair advantages. Now, this may sound weird or even unethical, but realizing what unfair advantages you have based off your strengths and weaknesses, where you live, or who you know, can take you way further when it comes to competitive Fortnite compared to just brainlessly playing. For example, if you live in Germany or Dallas, your unfair advantage is ping. You can have a playstyle revolving around taking walls and playing aggressively. If you have a $3,000 PC, your unfair advantage is better FPS than anyone, which means that in endgames, you'll have the upper hand over others, making it easier to get refreshes and just overall have a consistent playstyle. If you know someone who is already at a high level, that is also an unfair advantage, as you can play with and against them and ask for tips on how to improve. Understanding what unfair advantages you have and abusing them sounds immoral, but whether it be Fortnite or anything else in life, it's a skill that will take you far in any given field. A lot of people hate getting critiqued. They find it uncomfortable when someone is telling them what they could have done better in a given situation. But the skill of being able to watch embarrassing moments back and learning from them is a crucial one if you want to become a good player. Say for example, you have a bad tournament. A lot of people would just try and forget about it and not talk about their underperformance, whereas a pro would ask themselves, why did I play so bad? They wouldn't be happy to rewatch their gameplay, but that wouldn't matter because they know they can extract improvement from their shortcomings. Your weaknesses don't define what kind of player you are, but when you do have those moments where things go bad and you don't play to your normal standard, don't be embarrassed to watch over those events and learn from them. On a bit of the same topic and equally as important, we have not being scared to fight better players. Now, the reason I need to talk about this is because a lot of the time when I queue into matchmaking 1v1s, the players I play instantly leave as soon as I win 2 rounds in a row. I'm sure you've experienced this as well, and I get that not everyone is playing to become the best, but if you want to improve and get as good as possible, you should look at it as a good thing if you're able to play against someone who's better than you in creative. Being open to fight someone you know you'll most likely lose to shows that you're a player with an improvement mindset, and if you're able to actively play against the better and better players every day, it's only a matter of time before you start seeing impressive tournament results as well. Another common trait of professionals is that instead of saying what are you doing to their teammates like so many low tier players do, they say what am I doing when things go south. Being able to take accountability and not fall victim to something you can't control is super important if you want to become the best at anything. There are a lot of people who full on blame their teammates in the Fortnite community, and I don't think I've ever seen any of them reach a respectable amount of success. So stop being someone who always puts the blame on anyone but yourself. On a bit of a more practical note, you should not record replays on Fortnite. Recording replays makes your game perform noticeably worse compared to having this setting turned off. In order to turn it off, simply go to the right hand side of your screen, click your profile avatar, go down to the settings wheel and click settings. Once you're in the settings tab, make your way over to the game tab and scroll all the way down. When you're at the bottom, you'll see replays, and under it, record replays. Turn this setting off and enjoy better performance. Naturally, if you want to VOD review your games, you can do so by going on the tournament leaderboards after a tournament has concluded and VOD review from there. Looking like a good player does not mean you are one. Trying to look cool is a common trait of players who have a ton of potential but waste it. Pro players do not care about how they look when playing. All they care about is getting the job done. This can be in both fights and endgames. Players with a lot of potential who don't see in-game success tend to overcomplicate fights, doing builds and edits that not only waste mats, but also time and valuable awareness, making the chance of them getting third-partied 5 times higher. If you want to become a professional player, you need to act upon the first mistake the enemy makes. If you're too busy doing triple edits on a ghost, you'll lose out on opportunities to send your opponents back to the lobby, and in return, you might be the one going down. Good players, of course, also focus on what's important for improvement, not necessarily what's the most fun. The main mistake a lot of great young players do today is practice things they're already phenomenal at. For example, a lot of mechanical masterminds still play hours upon hours of build fight 1v1s, even though they're flawless at building and editing. Finding your weaknesses and consistently working towards improving them is a trait you need if you want to reach the top. Not only in Fortnite, but in anything. You must understand that some players have an easier time developing good mechanics than others, and the same can be said for any other skill as well, whether it be game sense, aim, movement, or learning good strats. Your job is to find out what skill you find hard to learn and work on it a lot, because a skill set with an evenly distributed skill level across all fundamentals will get you much further compared to being a 10 out of 10 mechanically, a 1 out of 10 strats wise, and a 5 out of 10 aimer. A lot of people come to me and wonder why they don't see success even though they play for hours every day. And when I go into their games, they never practice upon awareness. opponents. Now, let me explain what that means. Having awareness over the opponent you're fighting is the #1 priority. So if you can't have full awareness over your enemy, you're building and editing either too much or too fast. When you practice like this, not upon awareness, you build a highly volatile playstyle. That means that you can and will in some scenarios be able to win against even the best players. But you will also leave the door open for you dying to the worst. This is because when you don't have full awareness, you can get caught off guard. And for a lot of you watching, this is one of the only ways you can go down. So if you can limit yourself getting caught off guard as much as humanly possible, you will obviously also become 10 times harder to eliminate. Additionally, I bet you've all seen pros just having awareness over the opponent and letting the enemy make all the moves. And the pro just stands there with a shotgun out and wins the fight because of that. The reason they're able to do this is because when you practice upon having full awareness over the players you're fighting, you'll also, as time progresses, be able to pinpoint weaknesses instantly in the players you're fighting, good or bad. Next up, we gotta talk about how pros spend a lot of time watching themselves play and not others. And this is a tip that will be extremely valuable for most of you watching as well, as I know the majority of you are already good players. The reason pros watch themselves more than others is because they know what they're supposed to do in a given scenario. They know the game fundamentals and strats that are needed to win both fights and games. The reason watching other pros play is less effective is because you don't know their comms or pre-planned strategies for off spawns, mid games, or end games. So although watching others can be highly beneficial if you don't know the basics of competitive Fortnite, actively watching yourself will be better if you have that fundamental understanding of the game competitively. Pressure is another thing pros don't really feel, unless it's in a major tournament like FNCS Grand Finals or a big LAN. And even then, some pros feel very confident and relaxed. The reason a lot of pros feel so little pressure is because they know that nobody cares. And this is a mindset that has been popular in the pro scene for ages. Nobody cares about anyone other than themselves. And that's a very freeing feeling. Whether you get 10th or 10,000th, nobody's going to care. And of course, this sounds a little harsh, but it is the truth. And if you can adapt this mentality as well, the feeling of pressure will slowly and surely fade more and more for every tournament you play with this mindset. Understanding reps is also crucial if you want to go pro. Every professional player understands that if they want to improve, they need to fight other players, they need to get in reps of various different endgames around the map, and so forth. This is for some reason something a lot of players don't seem to understand. We all know someone who sits and hides all game and plays placement in ranked. If your goal is improvement, this is obviously not the way to play at all. W King in ranked is a must if you want to become alright at this game. Just imagine you play 10 games. Let's say it takes 300 minutes. And in those 10 games, you get 12 elims on average. That is 120 elims you've gotten in 10 games. Pretty effective practice. But your friend plays 10 ranked games and he only gets 2 elims on average because he plays placement and cares about his rank. In 10 games, or in other words, in 300 minutes, he has gotten 20 repetitions of fighting compared to your 120. Simply put it, his practice is 1/6 as effective as yours. The same reps rule can be applied to any aspect of Fortnite, whether it be practicing defensive or aggressive fighting, endgames, or scuffed edits. Not being like everyone else is another thing pros manage to think about and act upon. The main way good players create a unique skill set is consistently playing against the best players in the region every day, both in customs and creative. Naturally, this is not something that is available for everyone. So we need to think outside the box. We need to think of what is everyone doing and how can I do it better? Everyone plays tournaments, but only a handful have pre-planned strategies for their off spawns. Right there, you have one way of creating a unique skill set. Thinking about things that demand a high level of effort and acting upon it. Already there, you will put yourself substantially ahead of the curve. Of course, it doesn't stop there. You can keep going. Everyone aims in Fortnite, but only a few plays aim duels every day. Boom, another unique practice point that demands a little bit of effort. Or everyone has weaknesses, but only a few benchmark their weaknesses every now and then by playing 20 ranked games and writing down their cause of death in all 20 to find their actual shortcomings. There are thousands of ways you can build a unique skill set, but it demands effort and it isn't always going to be super fun. It will, however, yield incredible results. Something totally different that will also yield results is thinking about the game when you're not playing. This is something most great players do. They think about tournaments and specifically what they could have done better even when offline. When walking around alone, eating, or even in bed, they'll think about how playing a situation differently would have made the outcome different. This may seem super weird if you're not already doing it, but the brain is remarkably powerful, as we all know. So even when we're not in front of the monitor, we can improve by simply thinking. Reinvesting into yourself is super important. And when it comes to Fortnite, it is especially important if you want to reach the top. In the start of a lot of careers, people have awful PCs and peripherals, but as soon as they start making money, they should consider reinvesting, as some better equipment can take them all the way to the next level. Sadly though, some promising players invest in really expensive clothing rather than their career. In the last past 2 years or so as well, we have seen massive benefits by investing into exclusive coaching services by coaches like Chocoladen, who was Mero and Cooper's coach for this year's massive global championship that they won. And you of course also have Bloodex, who's working with other great players and personalities like Clix, Savage, Tayson, and Vena. These two coaches are remarkably expensive given their expertise and track record. But the good thing is that you can get a coach at nearly any price point, and getting input from a third party who is paid to do a job for you can be super effective, and the money you invest into a coach can easily be made back because of these services. Reinvesting is something everyone who has a hope to succeed competitively should look into. Another thing you need to look into is getting into a good friend group. Pro players always try to surround themselves with other people who are also looking to take the game seriously, improve, and make things happen. Of course, I'm not saying you need to leave the current friend group you're in, but some friend groups have people in them who all have victim mentalities. I think the reason they're not good is only because of their circumstances. If this sounds like your friend group, I highly recommend looking for a new one, where the people in it take accountability for their shortcomings and always look for ways to improve, regardless of circumstances. Making sure to give yourself the best odds of having a good day of practice will make the time you put into the game a lot more effective. This is why warming up is so important. When you play not warmed up, you're more prone to making simple mistakes. And when this happens, you'll build a playstyle around mistakes you normally don't make, and this will cause you to not take the necessary opportunities when they're given in tournaments. Making sure you have an okay warm-up where you get to do some builds and edit drills, as well as some aim warm-up, can make your practice noticeably more effective. Consistency is a common trait of all players who have made it professionally. Now, if you want to play at the very highest level, you need to be ready to put in an absurd amount of hours, and you also need to know that the potential of not making it is there. Of course, this sounds extremely negative, but if you have the mindset that you have to make it, it will be harder to be successful compared to if you just enjoy the journey of improving every day. The beauty of Fortnite comp is that the start is always the hardest, and it can be brutal. What this means is that making your first $100, getting your first top 100 placement, or qualifying to that first Duo Cash Cup final is by far the hardest part of going pro. After that, a threshold is broken, and your skill, placements, and earnings can skyrocket if you do the right things. A lot of people, however, don't. They make their first earnings and think they're way better than they actually are. They think just because they did incredible in one tournament that they can slow down and do it again and again without having to consistently practice. I've seen this so many times with people on Twitter, my friends, and even upcoming talents. If you can understand that when you get that first success, that's when you need to work harder than ever, you will reach very far in competitive. Adaptability is an incredible skill that can make you a good chunk of earnings. Being the first to adapt to new meta allows you to, in a way, get an unfair advantage. A lot of people don't take the time when a new update hits to try out everything new, but most professionals do, and quickly find out what they can use to their advantage to win games in solo victory cash cups, or even more important tournaments like FNCS qualifiers. Some people find it cringe to abuse the meta, but at the end of the day, the only thing that matters are your tournament results. So if you're able to adapt to the new items and get good results because of it, you should be proud. Map knowledge is crucial if you want to get to the point where you'll be able to consistently qualify to late stages of tournaments, or even qual to a grand final. The reason you need to know the map in and out is because of different endgame situations and elevation changes that you might have to make in the heat of the moment. This skill is naturally developed the more you play, and you learn extra fast if you grind custom game matchmaking. Minimal mouse movements is also something you should practice upon. Flicky builds and edits is a thing of 2020. With controlled mouse movements, you'll not only build a more consistent playstyle, but constantly having awareness over anyone you're fighting will also be a lot easier. With minimal mouse movements, you'll also see that aiming is easier, as you can have a smooth aim style rather than a flicky one. To make aiming, building, and editing easier, you can turn off a simple setting. When in the lobby, click on your avatar and go down to the settings wheel and click settings. Then go over to the game tab, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and make sure both of these energy saving options are set to off. If you don't know what to farm at your drop spot to get mats in the absolute quickest way possible, then your strategies can improve drastically. Pro players have pre-planned both loot and farming routes they use to give themselves an advantage over anyone else landing at their spot. Making a loot and farming route can be easily done by either hopping into a ranked match or a custom game. VOD reviewing other pro players landing on your spot could also be highly beneficial in terms of getting some inspiration regarding what to do and what not to do. When it comes to knowing what to do, understanding roles is also very important if you want to become a great player. Now, I do need to note that even though you might prefer being an in-game leader, you should still be able to get elims. Or if you're a fragger, you should still be able to take over tarps in endgames and make good calls. But understanding whether you should focus your time on becoming the best IGL possible or fragger will make your time practicing a lot more effective. Next up, we gotta talk about the importance of movement, or in other words, being a hard target to hit. Most pros never stand still when fighting. They're moving around, being unpredictable. If they're playing defensively, they'll play good peeks or otherwise use crouching, sprinting, or sliding to their advantage. making themselves, well, hard to hit. One of the best ways of improving movement is playing zone wars against other good players. If you have bad movement when playing zonies, you'll get punished time and time again until you learn. If you instantly want to get better shotgun aim, adapting an aim style around looking at the opponent and not inside of the crosshair will get you there. Looking inside of the crosshair will make your aim very unsustainable, because every small mouse movement will seem 10 times bigger than it is, because of the small area you're focusing on. If you focus on the opponent, your aim will be smoother and more accurate, whereas crosshair aiming is flicky and inconsistent. On long ranges, like when you're shooting someone gliding with an AR, it can be beneficial to look inside of the crosshair, but not when using the shotgun. Building a reactive playstyle is also insanely important if you want to reach the top. Having a reactive playstyle means you always full focus on the player you're fighting, and you don't think about the possibility of you getting third-partied. You see, wasting your focus and brain power on thinking about negative things that might happen will make your chance of succeeding lower. So that is why most pro players just full lock in on the fight they're playing and not ever worrying about getting third-partied. Of course, if you know that someone is in the area you're fighting and there is a real possibility of you getting snuck up on, you need to be prepared. But generally, you shouldn't have this predictive playstyle, because it limits your focus so much on the actual important task at hand. In addition, I bet you've all experienced that if you think about something negative happening, like someone landing in your box in endgames, you getting sniped, or anything else in that frustrating category, the chances of those things happening will for some reason be a lot higher. So don't waste valuable focus on things you cannot control. Auditory awareness as well as visualized sound effects turned on are two broken things you can abuse in endgame situations to gather major amounts of information. If you need a refresh and you hear an opponent under you or see footsteps, that's a great way to act upon an opportunity. Every pro player has really good auditory awareness. The best of the best, like Malabuka, master it to an extent that is incredible, and trying to improve it is essential if you want to become an extraordinarily well-rounded player. Doing damage on low HP is something a lot of average players suck at, whereas pros are calm and collected and still able to take the chances that are given, even when on low HP. The problem most players face is that they start stressing and they think they need to heal to win the fight they're in. But of course, healing won't be possible if you're fighting someone who's actually good at applying pressure. Pre-fires, perfect peaks, and edit resets are just a few ways to deal damage without taking any back. And mastering the art of doing damage on low HP comes from simply being confident and practicing it when playing ranked, creative, or customs. Communication is something I see so many low-level players struggle with, especially when they're spectating. Low-tier players always backseat games super hard, not letting their duo play in focus, whereas pro players don't talk when they're dead and let their duo play. Having good comms can make performing much easier. So trying to be someone with clear comms and someone who can hype his teammates up when clutching rather than backseat game is definitely something you should try and adapt. In addition to that, if you can have a positive attitude in tournaments and communicate that to the player you're playing with, that you just want to make the most out of the opportunity in this tournament, you'll probably see better results. Applying pressure is another thing pros are super good at, and normal players not so much. The main issue low-level players make is that they reload their guns with 10 to 20 bullets left. This basically means that they allow the enemy to heal up because their ammo usage is so ineffective. Pro players on the other side have so good awareness that they know exactly when to reload and exactly when not to. Pros are also really good at using both their weapons and their pickaxe to apply pressure, and they swap between the two. Making your enemy stressed by constantly applying pressure makes winning the fight 10 times easier as well. The best players in the world when it comes to aggressive pressuring are Veno, Peterbot, and Vico. So watching them when they're live on Twitch to learn a thing or two can be very smart. Not forgetting cones in your boxes when playing defensively is also ultra important. Not having a cone in your box allows your opponent to either place a cone or worse, a stair in your box. And if this happens, you'll probably take a good amount of damage, or you'll have to rebox and waste a lot of mats just because you forgot to use one build on a cone. Knowing exploits like facing through a wall using a stair and not using a stair is exceptionally important in Fortnite. And I think the majority of you guys watching know how to do it. But do you never fail those exploits? If you find yourself being a little inconsistent when it comes to exploiting, you should spend some time practicing it in creative with a friend of yours, because never failing exploits is super important if you want to reach the top. Not thinking you can go down, or in other words, being so confident you think you can win any situation, is another common trait of the very best players in the world. Most normal players might think when they're low and fighting a great player that they may go down. But I think this mentality of just full-on confidence to the point where the only outcome in your head is winning is super beneficial. Obviously, the times you do go down, it won't matter, because you probably put up a great fight if you have this mental. Developing this mentality takes a lot of trying and failing, but if you can get to this point, you can become almost unstoppable. What won't make you unstoppable though, but will help you greatly, is mat switching. Knowing what material to use in different situations. For example, when tarping an endgame in boxes you're not going to stay in, you use wood. wood. But then when you need to take a break and maybe heal up, you use metal, because metal obviously has a lot more health and it will be a lot harder to eliminate you when you are using this material. In mid-game fights, a lot of people also use metal, although this is really hard to re-farm. So using brick is definitely a better choice when you're taking those kind of fights. Knowing what kind of mats you should use comes from experience, and mastering the skill of mat switching can help you perform way better. A lot of people don't know what to do when they've been tagged in a fight. Should they focus on healing, reloading, or getting awareness? The first thing you need to always, without exception, do is make sure your guns are reloaded. Then when your guns are reloaded, you can feel free to heal. The thing with healing first is that a lot of people attempt it and get one mini shield off, but in return take 100 damage. Whereas reloading gives you the opportunity to return a big shot on the player aggressing. So that is why you should always reload first. Learning different stair edits to do when you're in a box with another player will make your success rate when in this position 15 times higher. Recently, unorthodox stair edits has become a little more popular because of players like Polarized, and that's a great thing, because you can learn a lot from just watching it. However, the muscle memory behind these stair edits is a little different to the normal Mongrel Classic. So if you want to learn all stair edits, you need to make an active effort to put some time into doing them over and over again when either warming up or when winding down for the night. Blueprint resets are a must in 2023 going into 2024. A lot of people still reset with their gun out or their pickaxe, but in order to perform an instant wall reset, you need to press your wall keybind and then scroll wheel reset. If you're on controller, you sadly don't have scroll wheel reset, but you just gotta be as fast as you can. The problem a lot of players face with blueprint resets is that they scroll before they pull out their wall, like 1 millisecond before the wall is fully pulled out. When this happens, you can sometimes get the reset bug where your wall doesn't reset at all. So practice slowly in the start, clicking your wall bind and then resetting. And then as you get more and more experience, you can do it faster and faster. Moving on, we all need to stop tracking the head when using spray weapons like the SMG or AR. In Fortnite, the chest hitbox is what you should go for the best possible aim. This applies to when in boxes, when people are gliding, and when you're setting up a 3-2-1 beam with your duo. The reason going for headshots is not viable is because Fortnite runs on 30-tick servers, and there is bloom in the game. So even if you manage to track the head perfectly, you won't be able to land only headshots because of the hitbox being so small, and of course because of the bloom. A lot of you watching will probably get to a level where you'll be a potential candidate for an organization, meaning you'll get signed for money. And this is a little bit of a different topic, but if you want to make money from gaming in general, don't be negative on Twitter. Don't post controversial takes. Organizations cannot take a risk on someone who tweets crazy things. So don't ruin your own potential career by posting something nuts. Pro players are fixated on improvement, so they focus on fixing even the smallest mistakes, because they know that even these minor flaws can cause them to not qualify for important events. Average players on the other side look at small mistakes and don't think a lot of them, maybe even neglect them because of how small they are. Obviously, you should focus on your main mistakes, but if you're able to fix 5 small mistakes a month, you'll become impressively much better at the end of the year. Fixing small mistakes compounds and makes you a much better player. One way to tackle nervousness in tournaments is to look at them as a benchmark of skill, rather than something you need to perform in. This is something I do, and I've found it so much easier to perform when I don't put the pressure on myself to get, say, a top 100 placement. It's easier to slowly and surely just get better and better placements with this mindset, because in Fortnite, it's very hard to track progress when you're around the top few thousand players in your region, and doing it this way is what I've found to be the best way to go about it. Reset piece control is a skill that is getting more and more popular. It's basically just piece controlling someone super quick by doing an edit and then placing a build or two and then resetting before the enemy gets a chance to shoot you. This is super effective if you can't get behind a perfect peak, but you still want to piece up the opposition. Some of the players that have already mastered this skill is Clicks, Pixie, Polarized, and Cooper. On more or less the same note, you have reset edits. Reset edits are incredibly viable when you're doing an edit on someone who you see have awareness over you. So if someone is on the other side of a wall you're editing with their shotgun out, performing an edit, resetting it, and allowing the opponent to shoot the wall so that you can get a free shot off is a fantastic way to deal some damage without your opponent having a chance to deal any back. After doing that, if you can face builds, either a stair, cone, or some walls on the opponent you're fighting, and they react by reboxing, you can easily send them back to the lobby. In all seriousness, facing builds is super good, and the beauty of it is that as long as you have less than 150 ping, you can also do it. When you face, for example, a ramp into someone's box, the most natural reaction for the opponent is either to go out to your right or drop down. Naturally, if you play against someone really good, they will either expand behind them or simply stay calm and break the stair with their pickaxe. But now that solo victory cash cups have gotten so much easier, facing builds is definitely a skill I would learn, because it can drastically lower the time it takes to eliminate someone. Using your movement to aim is also something that can be highly beneficial, especially when you're in a box with a SMG. You can also use your movement to aim when doing right-hand peeks. But in order to do this at a high level, you also need great crosshair placement and pre-aiming. Limiting a difficult mouse movements by using your movements to aim will make your aim a lot better and also more consistent. This skill is currently mainly mastered by controller players like Reet or Mero, but it is 100% doable to do it on keyboard as well. Finding something that really motivates you with this game will make it easier to become exceptional, and you can have goals like making 10k a month or getting 500k subs on YouTube. But what I've found is the best motivating factor is grinding to help others. So for instance, grinding hard to make money to retire your parents, or grinding hard so that you can help out with other finances in the house. Of course, I'm not one to tell you what motivational factor you should have, but finding one will make grinding so much easier, and you will also push yourself harder if you have a proper reason to actually grind. The SteelSeries Rapid Trigger makes the Apex Pro tankulus as fast as the Voting 60AG, and if you haven't already put it on, let me show you how. On Google, search for SteelSeries GG and click on the first link that appears. Then you want to download the software and go through the setup process. Once it's fully downloaded, make your way down to the engine tab, and for some of you it might say you have a critical update. To update, simply click on this mini banner and click start. Then when the update is done, click on the Apex Pro tab, go over to actuation and slide this right here to 0.1. If you're playing on PC, Process Lasso is a program that will drastically increase your performance. To download it, simply open Google and search for Process Lasso. Click the very first link that appears and click download free. When the program is downloaded, drag it onto your desktop and open it up. Click OK, and I agree, then reset options, next, and install. When the program is opened, it might look a little scary, but don't worry, I'll guide you through the entire process. Begin by going to the top left corner, main, and make sure your active power profile is set to high performance. Then go over to File, Config Profile, and create Config Profile. Name your profile Fortnite and hit OK. After that's done, go back to the top row and hover over Options. Then General, and go down to Refresh Interval GUI. Set it to 5 seconds. Then go back up to Options, General, and Refresh Interval Governor, and set it to 5 seconds as well. When that's done, you need to go up to Options yet again. Click Power, Performance Mode, and click Select Power Profile. When this box appears, select Bitsum Highest Performance. Click on OK. Go up to Options again, down to Power, and make sure you start Process Lasso with Power Profile set to Bitsum Highest Performance. Now you need to open Fortnite, then when Fortnite is open, go back to Process Lasso. Go over to Active Processes and find Fortnite Client Win64. Right click on it, go up to CPU Priority, Always, and set it to high. Right click on it again, go up to CPU Affinity, Always, and select CPU Affinity. And make sure CPU 0 is not checked. Then right click yet again and select Induce Performance Mode. Hit OK, and congrats, your input delay should be noticeably better. And lastly, you need to make sure to use the best Nvidia driver. To download the best driver, simply open Google and search for Nvidia drivers, and then click the second link that appears. Once you're on this website, you scroll down a little bit and enter your graphics card information. If you have a 3070, you put that in. If you have a 4080, you enter that. I have a 2080 Ti, so this is the input I'll insert. Then you want to click the search button and scroll down until you find driver 537.58. This is by far the best overall driver for Fortnite performance. Click Get Download and then Download Now. The download will take some time depending on your internet, but as soon as it's finished, open it up and then press OK on the pop-up window and let it do its thing. The driver will then check your system's compatibility, and when that's done, you can click Agree and Continue. On this next window, it is absolutely crucial that you press a Custom Advanced and not Express Recommended. Click it and then Next, and make sure you press the Perform a Clean Installation box. Then you're free to press Next and let the driver download. When it's finished, simply restart your PC and enjoy increased performance.